Let's put Afi Exquisite sewing pattern to work and make a new design with foam and lace. Don't you love it when you can squeeze a bunch more variations out of one pattern? In a future video, I will show you how to sew this cup, but in this one, we focus on changing the pattern. Before we begin, let's quickly peek what changes we may need to do. In the traditional Afi Exquisite Bra pattern, we've got a strip of lace covering only the neckline. The cup is made from fabric only, while on the back, it features raw seams with exposed seam allowances. Mine were overlocked. For today's design, we want to have lace for the main part of the cup. And that's because we want to take advantage of the continued scalloped edge of the lace. With the lace on the right side, a good backup is needed. I will be using foam. But, look, I am making the power bar section from foam too. The trick here is, it's going to stop at the lace level, so for this project you're going to need to cut 2 sets of cup pieces. One set of pieces will be used for foam. The other one is for lace. Let's start with the foam cup. Pick up the A1 cup and fold it at the notch number 1 and trim away the upper part. Next, for the vertical seams, we need to cut away the seam allowances. At the bottom over here, this tiny section is part of the wire line. Do not cut this. Continue removing the seam allowances for the rest of the vertical seams. When working on the A4 part, this edge is the vertical seam. While on the right edge, do not cut the seam allowance for the wire line. Saying it again, do not cut the seam allowances on the wire side. Look here, when you align all the pieces, you can see how the wire line goes from the A1 over to A4 piece. When sewing, this part will be joined to the bottom band of the bra. Moving on, we need to trim the seam allowances here at the neckline for these 3 pieces. But for the A1, which goes to the armhole, we need to cut away the seam allowance on the elastic segment. With everything prepared, we can now proceed tracing on the foam. Then cutting all 4 cup pieces. Don't forget that we need 2 cups for the bra, and don't forget to mark the notches. And we are done with the foam. Let's move on to the lace cup. Put away the A1 piece. We don't need it here. Once again, for the remaining pieces we are going to cut away the seam allowances at the neckline. Now, look, for the seam that's between A3 and A4 piece, we will remove the seam allowances completely. But for the seam allowances between A2 and A3, we will cut only a portion, starting from the top to the arrow point. Watch here, how I cut mine on A2 piece. For the A3, again, remove the section from top, towards the arrow. Okay, pick up a sheet of paper, and trace a straight line, using a ruler. Now align, and tape the A2 along the neckline. I'm marking the corner for you here. This is where we'll align the A3 piece, next to the previous one. Don't forget to tape it. Then align and tape the A4 piece as well. Please note that you must not overlap the pieces. When fixed, let's trace this composition all around. Out of 3 pieces, we're going to make one big piece. For the smaller gap, that's between the A3 and A4 piece, join the ends with a straight line at the bottom. And split the section in half, so we know this will be a dart, not a full seam. For the bigger gap, however, we do things differently. Join the lines, then mark all the notches. There are several, spread on all pieces. When done, start tracing all the seam allowances, they will serve us as a visual guide. On this gap, that's between A2 and A3 piece, trace the section without seam allowances, following the original pattern. On A3, continue marking the seam allowances all the way to the bottom of the piece. For A2, you need to trace the seam allowances all around. Having everything marked, remove the taped pieces and let's cut our new pattern piece. I specifically did not cut the smaller gap here, so you remember that this is going to be a dart on the lace. However, once finished, right before we cut the lace, I am going to open the dart so we can later on trace it. Now, align the straight neckline to the scallops of the lace and start cutting the lace. When we reach the dart section, remember, we must not cut away the dart. Instead, at the bottom, move the cutter in a straight line. From there, continue cutting as usual, including cutting away the bigger gap. When done, quickly mark the dart with a soap or a chalk or a removable pen. For the other gap, mark the end of the future seam. Firmly insist with the markings, they are important. To have the lace mirrored, we are going to arrange the first cup on top of a lace section where the pattern matches. Right sides of the lace face each other. And again, you need to trace the dart on the second lace piece as well. I know you can barely see mine, but the markings are there. If you've made it so far, know that we're almost done. You should have a similar set of pieces for the right and the left cup. I also cut double A1 pieces for each cup. Check yours, because you need to have them all. And we're ready to sew. In the next video tutorial, we're going to see the particularities how to sew this specific Afi Exquisite cup design. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great week ahead. See you for the second video.